On the morning of June 30th, 1934, a 29-year-old man was dragged from a Berlin cell, his face bruised, his SS uniform replaced with civilian clothes. He had commanded 60,000 stormtroopers. He had personally organized the burning of the Reichstag building. He had beaten communists, Jews, and political opponents in the streets of Berlin for nearly a decade. Now he stood before a wall at Lichterfelde barracks, screaming a single phrase as the firing squad raised their rifles. "Heil Hitler!" The bullets tore through him before the words finished leaving his mouth. His name was Karl Ernst, and the man he had just saluted was the man who had ordered his death. Welcome back to Veil History. Today we expose the rise and quick execution of Karl Ernst, the Berlin SA commander who helped Hitler seize power, only to be murdered by the very regime he built. Karl Ernst was born on September 1st, 1904, in the German city of Wilmersdorf, a suburb of Berlin. His family was working class. His father was a hotel employee, his mother a housewife. There was no military tradition in the family. There was no political legacy. There was nothing that should have produced one of the most violent street commanders in Nazi history. Ernst left school early. He took work as a hotel page boy, then as a waiter, then as a bouncer at various Berlin establishments. Germany in the 1920s was collapsing. The Treaty of Versailles had crushed the economy. Hyperinflation had wiped out savings. Unemployment was massive. Berlin had become a city of street fights, political assassinations, and competing armed factions. Ernst found his calling in this chaos. In 1923, at age 19, he joined the Sturmabteilung, the SA, also known as the Brown Shirts. The SA was the Nazi Party's paramilitary wing, founded to protect Nazi meetings and attack political opponents in the streets. Ernst rose through the ranks not through education or strategy, but through raw physical violence. He was tall, athletic, and willing to fight anyone, anywhere, at any time. By the late 1920s, he had become close to Ernst Röhm, the founder and commander of the SA. Röhm saw in Karl Ernst a useful tool, a man who could command other violent men, a man without the inhibitions of conscience. In 1931, Ernst was promoted to lead SA-Gruppe Berlin-Brandenburg. He was 27 years old. He commanded tens of thousands of armed brown shirts in the German capital. His mission was simple: eliminate the Communist Party from the streets of Berlin, beat down Jewish shopkeepers, disrupt rival political rallies, terrorize anyone who opposed Adolf Hitler. He did this work with enthusiasm. Berlin in the early 1930s became a battlefield, and Karl Ernst was one of its most feared commanders. When Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933, Karl Ernst was at the front of the brown shirt column that marched through the Brandenburg Gate. The torchlight parade lasted for hours. Hundreds of thousands of SA men flooded central Berlin. Ernst stood near the front, a rising star of the Nazi movement, basking in what he believed was his moment of victory. It was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Ernst's SA units began a campaign of terror across Berlin. They raided the offices of opposition newspapers. They smashed the windows of Jewish-owned shops. They abducted communist leaders from their homes and brought them to improvised SA prisons, where torture was routine. Estimates suggest that during the spring of 1933, the SA in Berlin operated dozens of such unofficial detention sites. Many prisoners never came out. Then came the night of February 27, 1933. The Reichstag, the German parliament building, was set on fire. The Nazi government immediately blamed a Dutch communist named Marinus van der Lubbe, who was found at the scene. He was arrested, tried, and executed. The Reichstag fire became the pretext for the suspension of civil liberties across Germany. It was the legal mechanism that allowed Hitler to dismantle democracy. The official story has always been that van der Lubbe acted alone, but for decades historians have debated whether the SA itself, particularly the Berlin SA under Karl Ernst, played a role. Several SA defectors, including former SA commander Hans Gisevius and others who survived the regime, later claimed that Karl Ernst personally organized a team of SA men who entered the Reichstag through an underground tunnel from the official residence of Hermann Göring, who was then Reichstag president. According to these accounts, the SA men placed incendiary materials throughout the building before van der Lubbe was allowed to enter. This claim has never been fully confirmed by surviving documentation. It is therefore presented as historical testimony, not absolute fact. But what is documented is that Karl Ernst himself, in private conversations later reported by SA insiders, boasted about his role in the fire. After the Reichstag fire, his power grew. He was elected to the Reichstag itself. He was given control of larger SA formations. He was photographed alongside Hitler at major rallies. By early 1934, Karl Ernst commanded one of the largest SA regional commands in Germany, with approximately 250,000 men under his authority across Berlin and Brandenburg. He was 29 years old. He had no formal education beyond his teenage years. He had built his entire career on street violence and personal loyalty to the SA leadership. He believed he was untouchable. He was wrong. By 1934, the SA had become a problem for Adolf Hitler. The brown shirts had served their purpose. They had intimidated voters, crushed opposition, and helped Hitler take power. But now Hitler was chancellor. He needed the support of the German army, the conservative aristocracy, and the industrialists. These groups despised the SA. They saw the brown shirts as a vulgar mob of street thugs who threatened the social order. Ernst Röhm, the SA chief of staff, made things worse. Röhm openly demanded a second revolution. He wanted the SA to absorb the regular German army. He wanted radical socialist economic policies. He wanted the Nazi Party to remain a movement of the streets, not a partner of the elites. Karl Ernst supported Röhm completely. As Berlin SA commander, he echoed Röhm's demands. He spoke at rallies about the unfinished revolution. He boasted that the SA would soon replace the regular military. He treated army generals with open contempt. This was suicide. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, and Hermann Göring, who was building his own power base, began feeding Hitler reports that Röhm and his senior commanders were planning a coup. The evidence was thin. Most historians today believe there was no actual coup plot, but Hitler made his decision. The SA leadership had to be eliminated. The plan was set for late June 1934. Hitler would personally lead an operation to arrest Röhm and his closest commanders at a resort hotel in Bavaria. Simultaneously, SS units across Germany would arrest and in many cases murder hundreds of other targets. Some were SA leaders, others were old political enemies who had nothing to do with the SA at all. Karl Ernst was at the top of the list. On June 28, 1934, Ernst was in Bremen, preparing to depart on his honeymoon. He had just married a young woman in Berlin. The couple were planning to sail to Madeira, an island off the coast of Portugal, for a long honeymoon vacation. Ernst had no idea what was coming. His SS arrest team had already been dispatched. They were tracking him. They were waiting. The next 48 hours of his life would be his last. On the morning of June 30th, 1934, Karl Ernst and his new wife were driving towards the port of Bremen, where their ship was waiting. Ernst was relaxed. He was a senior Nazi official. He was a personal acquaintance of Hitler. He had no reason to suspect that the regime he had helped create was about to turn on him. As his car approached the outskirts of Bremen, an SS unit pulled in front of him and forced him to stop. What happened in the next several minutes is documented through SS reports and witness accounts. Ernst initially believed there was a misunderstanding. He showed the SS men his identification. He demanded to know what the matter was. The SS officer in charge ordered him out of the car. Ernst refused. He reached for his pistol. The SS men opened fire. Ernst was hit multiple times in the arm and shoulder. His new wife screamed. The SS men dragged him from the car, beat him to the ground, and took his weapon. He was bleeding heavily. His honeymoon clothes were soaked with blood. His wife was pushed aside and threatened. Ernst was loaded into an SS vehicle. His arrest team did not take him to a hospital. They did not allow him to speak to his lawyer. They did not even tell him what he was charged with. He was driven directly to Berlin. On the journey, Ernst alternated between rage and confusion. He shouted that there must be a mistake. He demanded to speak to Hitler personally. He insisted that he was loyal. He insisted that he had served the Führer faithfully for over a decade. He could not understand what was happening. The SS men in the vehicle did not respond. They had their orders. They knew exactly what was about to happen to the famous Berlin SA commander. Karl Ernst was driven through the Berlin streets he had once terrorized as a brown shirt enforcer. The same streets where he had beaten communists, the same streets where he had organized the burning of synagogues and political offices. The car stopped at the Lichterfelder barracks. His final hours had begun. The Lichterfelder barracks were located in the southwest of Berlin. Originally built as a Prussian military academy, the facility had been converted into an SS headquarters and execution site during the Night of the Long Knives. By the morning of June 30th, dozens of senior SA men were already being held there, awaiting their fate. Karl Ernst was thrown into a cell. His wounds were not properly treated. He was given no food. He was not allowed to contact his family or his lawyer. He was told nothing about the charges against him. Outside, in the courtyard, a firing squad was being assembled. The SS men selected for execution duty were given specific orders. Each victim would be brought out individually. There would be no trial. There would be no last statement. The killings were to be quick, efficient, and continuous throughout the day. Ernst was held for several hours. Records suggest he repeatedly demanded to see Hitler, convinced that a personal meeting would clear up the supposed misunderstanding. The SS guards ignored him. In the afternoon, his cell door opened. 2 SS men entered. They told him to stand. They led him out of the cell, down a corridor, and into the courtyard. The firing squad was waiting. Ernst was placed against a wall. He was offered no blindfold. According to SS witnesses, he was confused and disoriented. He did not believe, even at this final moment, that the regime he served was actually going to kill him. The officer in charge raised his hand. Ernst, in a final act of total ideological loyalty, looked at the firing squad and shouted, "Heil Hitler!" The order to fire was given. Multiple bullets struck Ernst in the chest. He collapsed against the wall and slid to the ground. A second volley was fired into his body to confirm the kill. SS men dragged the corpse away to make room for the next prisoner. Karl Ernst was 29 years old. He had been married for less than 2 weeks. His widow was eventually allowed to return to Berlin. She was given no body to bury. She was given no death certificate. She was simply told that her husband had been executed for treason. The Night of the Long Knives lasted from June 30th to July 2nd, 1934. During those 3 days, the SS murdered an estimated 85 to 200 people across Germany. Many were senior SA commanders. Others were political opponents, conservative critics, and old personal enemies who had nothing to do with the SA at all. Ernst Röhm was shot in his cell 2 days later, after refusing to commit suicide. Adolf Hitler addressed the German parliament on July 13, 1934. He defended the killings. He claimed that the SA leadership had been planning a violent coup. He named himself the supreme judge of the German people. The Reichstag passed a law retroactively legalizing every murder committed during the purge. The German army leadership was satisfied. The conservative aristocracy was satisfied. The industrialists were satisfied. The SA, once the most powerful paramilitary force in Germany, was reduced to a ceremonial organization. The SS, under Heinrich Himmler, took its place as the regime's primary instrument of terror. Karl Ernst's name disappeared from official Nazi history within months. Photographs in which he appeared with Hitler were quietly destroyed. His wife was given a small pension and ordered never to speak about her husband publicly. The man who had commanded 250,000 brown shirts, who had helped organize the Reichstag fire, who had personally led the conquest of Berlin's streets for the Nazi movement, was erased. His final shout of Heil Hitler became one of the great ironies of Nazi history. He died believing that the Führer he served would somehow save him. He died not understanding that Hitler himself had signed the order. He died as a victim of the system he had spent his entire adult life building. Karl Ernst built his power on street violence, blind loyalty, and the belief that the Nazi regime would always reward its enforcers. He was wrong. Within 18 months of helping Hitler take power, he was lying dead in a courtyard, killed by the same movement he served. If this video gave you a clear picture of how the Night of the Long Knives consumed its own architects, hit that like button and subscribe to Veil History. Drop a comment with the name of the next Nazi figure you want exposed. We will see you in the next one.